Let's talk about one of the oldest challenges in leadership. How do you actually build a system of governance that's rooted in justice and service, not in personal gain? Well, today we're diving into a fascinating blueprint from the 7th century that tackled this problem head-on. It was designed by the second Caliph of Islam, Umar ibn al-Khattab, and it's all about his fiqh, his deep understanding of what it takes to lead.
And really, the entire system kicks off right here, with this foundational verse. It establishes that leadership isn't some right to be claimed. No, it's a sacred trust. It's this profound responsibility where any authority you have is ultimately accountable to God. And that one idea, well, it shapes absolutely everything that follows. So here's how we're going to break down Umar's system. We'll look at it through 5 key pillars. First, this idea of a sacred trust. Then, the blueprint for a leader, the governor's contract, what I'm calling radical accountability, and finally, humility and power. All right, so let's jump in. The very first step was a meticulous, careful selection process. See, Umar believed that the character of a leader literally determined the health of the entire state. So he wasn't looking for status or ambition, he was looking for very specific qualities. And this was his ironclad rule, a principle that completely turns modern leadership recruitment on its head. He believed that anyone who actively craved power was, by that very fact, disqualified. The act of wanting the job was proof you weren't fit for it. Ambition wasn't a resume builder, it was a giant red flag. So how did this actually play out in the real world? Well, Umar once posed this exact dilemma to his advisors when they needed a governor for Kufa. Imagine you have 2 candidates. One is deeply religious, very pious, but he's weak. The other is strong, competent, a real doer, but maybe not quite as pious. Who do you choose? What do you do? And the answer they reached after consultation was just incredibly pragmatic. They decided that a leader's strength and competence that directly serves the people, and that is the #1 job. His personal level of piety, well, that's a matter for him and God. But his ability to govern well, that's a matter for the public good. Okay, so once a leader was selected, it wasn't just a handshake and a good luck. Not at all. They were bound by a formal witness document, a contract of appointment, that spelled out the strict terms of their service, right from the get-go. And the specifics on this slide are just fascinating. These 4 conditions basically forced an ascetic lifestyle on them. No fancy horses, no fine bread or clothes. This was all to ensure the governor never became detached from the very people he was serving. And most important of all, his door had to always be open to anyone in need. He was there to be a public servant, not some remote ruler locked away in a palace. But listen, a contract is only as good as its enforcement, right? And this is where Umar built this powerful system of checks and balances. It was designed for one purpose, and one purpose only, to make sure that power did not corrupt. First rule, a complete and total ban on private business for governors. No conflicts of interest, period. When one of his agents, a man named al-Harith, started showing some new wealth from trading, Umar confiscated the profits and told him sharply, "We have sent you as governors, not as merchants." And get this is where things get really, really modern sounding. It was called the wealth audit. Before any governor took office, his entire net worth was officially recorded. When his term was up, it was audited. Any increase in wealth that couldn't be explained by his official salary was investigated. I mean, talk about a revolutionary practice for its time. But beyond all the rules, the contracts, and the audits, Umar demanded one defining characteristic above all else: profound humility. And honestly, there's no better way to understand this than through the story of one of his top commanders, Abu Ubaidah. So, imagine the scene. A high-ranking Byzantine envoy arrives at the Muslim camp. He's there to negotiate with the leader, Abu Ubaidah. But when he gets there, he's just completely confused. He's looking around and he cannot distinguish the commander from any of the other soldiers. So the envoy asks, "Oh, Arabs, where is your leader?" And the soldiers, they just point towards a man sitting right there on the bare ground with a bow on his shoulder, just carefully examining an arrow in his hand. You can just imagine the envoy's shock. He walks up to the man and asks, "Are you the leader of these men?" Abu Ubaidah says, "Yes." And the envoy, just totally baffled by the lack of pomp and circumstance, asks, "Then why are you sitting on the ground? Why don't you sit on a cushion?" It was this huge clash of cultures about what power is even supposed to look like.
And Abu Ubaida's reply is just so powerful. He explains that they are all servants of God. They live simply because true status isn't about cushions or thrones. He says that humility before God is what truly raises their status. That single idea just brilliantly captures the core principle of this entire system.
So you see, it all fits together, right? It wasn't just a collection of good ideas. It was a complete, interconnected system. The careful selection, the binding contract, the radical accountability, and that profound humility, they all worked together to create this blueprint for leadership that was completely rooted in service. And that brings us right back to the present. When you look at this ancient blueprint with its focus on anti-ambition, lifestyle contracts, wealth audits, and radical humility, it leaves us with a pretty provocative question. Which of these principles do you think are most needed in our world today?